Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind it.
That we have 66 out of Kentucky's 120 counties that can't even afford to educate their own children, and yet the Kentucky public is sending out hundreds of millions of dollars, and the American public is sending out billions of dollars in tax-free income to the international criminal syndicates in South America and Mexico for a plant my granddaddy used to grow by the thousands of acres, and I'm going to redirect that money out of the hands of these international criminal syndicates, and I'm going to put them into the capital tax coffers of Frankfurt so I can lift the people of Kentucky out of poverty and out of the misery and out of these last place standard living. And not only am I going to redirect this money, but I'm going to redefine the role of government in policing private behavior in the state of Kentucky. We live in a police state. We live in a police state. You can leave here, go out and get in your car, and they can set up a random roadblock in front of you, make you get out of your car, bring a dog up to sniff you, your car, and all its belongings, take blood out of the yarn, make you pee in a bottle, and stick their hands where the sun don't shine. That's a police state. That's a police state no matter how.
I don't know, Jack. It reminds me of another fellow I was telling about running for governor. He said, well, I'll be for you or against you, whichever helped you the most. Any government that tells you that the solution to a present-day problem is doubling the prison population over the next 20 years has its head stuck where it's never going to discover the 1,000 points of light of George Bush. My opinion, these people's idea of future full employment is to make half of us prison guards and the other half prisoners. This man is an alien. He's not a conservative. He's an alien. He and Ronald Reagan both. They are willing to imprison a whole generation of people to keep intact the petrochemical and pharmaceutical monopolies in this country, of which he's well vested in each. And I think he's a vampire. I don't think he's an American. I think he's a vampire willing to suck the life out of all us victims in order to remain powerful and in a powerful position. But let me take this opportunity right here. Wherever this gets shown, let me tell you something. I am pleased and honored to be in the presence of one of the most brilliant men in the United States.
This gentleman next to you,
Jack is author of Emperor Wears No Clothes, and so much more than just an author. A researcher and a dedicated and diligent activist, and a man who I know for a fact is responsible for tens of thousands of people in this country being able to come out of the closet and stand up out of the darkness and stand up out of oppression and despair and lives of quiet desperation, and be able to point to the source of knowledge and the truth and the point of light that this man right here is personally responsible for putting together. I would not be where I am today were it not for Jack Hare, and I know that a lot of people would not be walking tall and with dignity and a sense of pride and a sense that they do no wrong by communicating with Mother Earth through the herb and in other fashions. And this man right here is responsible for as much of it as I know of. I'm sure other people deserve credit to have helped him out. But this man right here is one of the most brilliant people in the United States today, and I hope someday that this country and the people in it will reward him appropriately for what he's done for freedom and individuality and civil liberties and Mother Earth in this country. I want to take that opportunity right now.
Does that mean I got free grass for the rest of my life?
No, I was going to ask you that. Hell no, I got to make profits, son. I got to start buying,
Hey, let me show you something you can take back and we can give you better photos. This is Mr. Henry Ford in 1941 with Popular Mechanics magazine showing off his car made from hemp.
Oh, is that when the whole car itself was made from hemp?
And it says so right there in Popular Mechanics, 1941. Is that nice? One more nail in the car. That's an I mean, they should have never let us find that one.
Oh, man, that is, let me tell you right now, this is not the case of a blind hog snuffing out an acorn every once in a while. This is dedication and intelligence. You know, I think Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. This man right here has sweat his ass off for all.
Oh, yes, he certainly has.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, I had a lot of good teachers. And
Okay,
this man wrote a book that I read that was one of the, really, Michael Aldrich had written some of the greatest work on hemp long before I even really understood hemp. Well, he wrote it in '77. The Kentucky hemp.
Oh, yeah.
The Kentucky, what was it?
Marijuana feasibility study.
Study. It was fucking blew my
Yeah, I've
mind
heard
away.
about that, yeah.
It was by adding
That's
that and the prospectus. So he is not somebody who needs to come to me to learn about hemp. I learned a lot of my hemp from him.
I was born in it, Jack.
They know marijuana does not make you crazy. They know marijuana does not lead you to crime. They know marijuana does not lead you to harder drugs. But marijuana is a system of control that they can exercise over you because you step out of line from their corporate policies. This is the Million Marijuana March. And today there are demonstrations just like this in every major city across the world.
I think that the laws against marijuana are the most vivid illustration of where this government has overstepped its bounds in policing private behavior. The petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military-industrial complex has utilized the lawmaking powers of Congress to get through legislation which has criminalized the farmer who's gone into competition with these synthetic manufacturers. Hemp is the #1 fiber, the #1 fuel, the #1 food, and #1 medicine. So the laws against marijuana are the most important step that this government special interest have put together and put on the people to remove them from the natural cycle of things.
No pot! No pot! We smoke pot! We smoke pot!
Unless people actually get out in the streets and actually demonstrate and actually push the envelope, this First Amendment has no life. I've been at these things when we had 50 people. I've been at them when we had 20,000. And I'm always empowered by seeing one person stand up and try to give life and vibrancy and existence to the Bill of Rights in this society.
We live in a police state, there's no doubt about it. You can leave this demonstration and go get in your car and get out on the road. And they can set up a random roadblock in front of you and make you get out of your car, bring up a dog to sniff you, your car, and all its belongings, take blood out of your arm, make you pee in a bottle if they think you got something. That is a police state. I will not live in a police state. Our fathers and our grandfathers did not fight and die on the beaches of Normandy and Iwo Jima so that you would have to pee in a cup to hold a job in America.
There is a peaceful solution called a peace revolution. Now let's take back America. There's a war and we're in it. I know we can win it, so let's take back America. There was a dream, so believe it and get ready to receive it. Now let's take back America. And when the war is over and we've won it, let's remember how we done it so we don't have to do it again. There is a peaceful solution called the peace revolution. Now let's take back America.
Pardon me, I don't think marijuana was a problem back in 1937. It certainly wasn't a problem. It's certainly not a problem today, and it's all over the place. So I don't know how it could possibly have been a problem in 1937. Except for the fact that when they passed that law, for the first time the federal government took over the right to tell you what seed you could plant in the ground and what you could do with the product of that seed. Let me put it like this. Some people who don't know me give me a reputation for wanting to legalize drugs. I do not want to do that. I'm in the business of trying to license and regulate cannabis as a crop. Tomatoes are legal. Alcohol and tobacco is licensed and regulated. And I seek to license and regulate, take it out of the black market status, just cannabis now. I would take the law enforcement dollar, which we would save off of that we're currently spending on detecting, arresting, prosecuting, and incarcerating people who associate with the cannabis plant. If we change the laws, we'd save all that money. I would go after the hard drugs. I'd go after the synthetic drugs, the crack, the cocaine, the heroin, those kinds of synthetic drugs, man-made drugs, which destroy the spirit and overcome rights of determination and self-choice because they're addictive and destructive to the body. But the most insidious is the prescription medicine scourge. There are pharmaceutical medicines and their impact on society have paralyzed entire portions of Kentucky, including vast regions of eastern Kentucky, which have no economy and have no jobs, and are the main sources for illicit OxyContin and Lorcet and Lortab. And these pharmaceutical companies are out there spending billions of dollars encouraging as many people as they can to take this poison. And they know that it is addictive, and they know there's a huge black market that builds up around people's necessity of continuing to take this addictive medicine once their doctor stops their treatment. So there is a big black market up there, and the pharmaceutical companies are well aware of it. For less than a penny a tablet, they could create OxyContin so you can't crush it up and snort it. So they're aware of this, and but they didn't do that, and it's not because they didn't want to save a penny a tablet. It's simply because they knew they had a big addiction situation, and they were going to sell a hell of a lot more OxyContin than if everybody was addicted to it.
And the question of hemp, the question of cannabis, is the most vivid illustration of how this government has overstepped its bounds in policing the private behavior of citizens. When they told us we couldn't plant a hemp seed in the ground, they severed us from the natural cycle. That is what they seek to do. I call it the synthetic subversion, where they want to replace all the natural products on earth that used to be grown out of God's earth and God's seed, and replace them with synthetic products, and knocked our farmer out of the agrarian society and the agrarian market, and made the ghost towns of our small cities and villages across this country. We need to rediscover a cash crop, one that will allow our farmers to go back to the land, one that will allow our farmers to compete with the petrochemical pipelines. You plant U.S. 7% agricultural land in hemp, you wouldn't have to import another drop of oil. We can replace the spills in the Gulf. We can replace the environmental catastrophe that the petroleum pipelines have cast upon Mother Earth, and instead let our farmers grow hemp as a fuel crop. In 1991, Willie Nelson and I poured hemp oil into my Mercedes diesel and drove it across Kentucky in my bid for governor. That's why he started his biofuel plant. Listen, folks, you all have been handed a torch. Jack Hare, bless his soul, passed away. I'm getting old up here. You know, we cannot carry this ball much longer. You have to become educated. You have to learn the truth. You have to reach out there and grab the responsibility of maintaining your freedom. Every generation must rewin its own freedoms. And those very sacrifices, right up to the very last second I've been talking to you, made on your behalf, cannot continue anymore. What really counts is your all's commitment to what sacrifices you're willing to make in the future to maintain your freedom. And it's right there in front of you. I encourage you to learn the law. I encourage you to learn the political process. I encourage you to reach out there and take responsibility of your own freedom. Live your life like a warrior. God bless you all. Thanks for having me out here in Seattle.
Hey, this is Willie, and you're going to be voting for a governor in your state, Kentucky, pretty quick. So think about Gatewood Galbraith, because he's my friend. I've known him a long time. He and I believe the same way about a whole lot of things, and I think you believe a lot of the same things that he does. So hear him out. Gatewood for governor. Thank you.
I met Gatewood and I was very impressed by him. You know, we both loved cannabis and we would smoke out at the normal conferences together for a few years. But in 1990, about September, he called me and said, Willie Nelson wants to meet you. So I hung out with Willie and we got him some herb, and he would have me roll joints about every 45 minutes. He'd say, roll another one, Paul. Roll another one, Paul. And so I did. Then he invited me to come back to Kentucky in October, that this guy, Gatewood Galbraith, was running for governor. So I flew back to Lexington, Kentucky, and had a press conference there with Willie Nelson and Gatewood Galbraith, and then they drove Gatewood's red Mercedes-Benz station wagon powered entirely on hemp seed oil. They took pressed hemp seed oil, discovered that it can be used as a diesel fuel. They poured it right into the engine and were able to drive from Lexington about 50 miles to the state capitol in Frankfort. We stopped at the state capitol. The Kentucky legislators went crazy over Willie Nelson. Then we drove on about another 80 miles on to Louisville, Kentucky. And Willie Nelson did a benefit that night in Louisville, Kentucky.
We'd always heard that Rudolph Diesel had manufactured his diesel engine run off seed oil. We really didn't understand, quite grasp that. This was in the early 90s, late 80s. And then a fellow from Nevada, Las Vegas, Nevada, came through town driving a little Volkswagen diesel, and he was running it off Burger King oil. And so we had just derived some hemp oil out of hemp seeds. Hemp seeds are 30 to 40% oil by weight. You got 100 pounds of hemp seeds, you can derive 30 to 40 pounds of pure oil out of it. And so we had some of that, and he tested it out in his engine, and he says, this is the best seed oil that I've ever driven this car on. And so we had seed oil. When Willie came in to do a benefit concert for me, we poured that hemp oil into my Mercedes diesel and drove it about 110 miles across Kentucky. And it was the first time in, I guess, 50 to 60 years that any vehicle had ever been driven on hemp oil on the United States roads. But Willie told me later on, 12 years later actually, about 10 years later, he says, Gatewood, he says, that afternoon we did that. It taught me what it was all about, and that's the reason I started my biofuel company, was from what we learned that afternoon driving your Mercedes across there. And we were also smoking about the biggest hooters that probably rode in Kentucky at the time.
And there was a caravan of us. We went from the Hyatt there and Rupp Auditorium through Frankfurt, the state capital, which is about 80 miles, and then altogether 120 miles all the way into Louisville, which is the largest city in Kentucky. And then he did a big benefit concert for you there that night.
That's right. But, we need help in healthcare. Hemp as a cash crop out there for the petroleum purposes. Now, hemp, you get 22 barrels of petroleum off an acre of hemp when you grow cannabis in an industrial textile direction. Our farmers need that niche in the energy market, and that would furnish, according to the state calculations, 68,000 new jobs.
For seed, hemp is planted in hills like corn, sometimes by hand. Hemp is a dioecious plant. The female flower is inconspicuous, but the male flower is easily spotted. In seed production, after the pollen has been shed, these male plants are cut out. These are the seeds on a female plant. Hemp for fiber is ready to harvest when the pollen is shedding and the leaves are falling. In Kentucky, hemp harvest comes in August. Here, the old standby has been the self-rake reaper, which has been used for a generation or more. Hemp grows so luxuriantly in Kentucky that harvesting is sometimes difficult, which may account for the popularity of the self-rake with its lateral stroke. In Kentucky, hemp is shucked as soon as safe after cutting, to be spread out for retting later in the fall.
Just so heartening to see the progress that, of course, Proposition 215 in California in '96, and what you folks have done here in Oregon. I mean, it's just fuel for my fire to see you all actually succeed at something I've been trying to do in Kentucky for for 40 years. We need to lift Kentucky out of poverty. It's one of the most poverty-ridden states in the country. We find 47th, 48th, 49th, and 50th in all the standard of living indexes. Our children are poor, we're broke, we're bankrupt. We can't fund the retirement for our teachers or for our public employees. We need to find and rediscover something that will generate some money in the state. And of course, we were the world's largest producer of cannabis for over 100 years.
That's right.
And so, I want to go back and touch on the history and heritage of the state and get us to return to cannabis as a cash crop. Hey, if we're the first state east in Mississippi to actually license and regulate the hell out of it, we will lift Kentucky out of poverty. I'll fill every hotel room and motel room in that state 7 nights out of 7.
Make tourism boom, won't it?
Hey, you betcha. These won't be people come in there and drink whiskey and punch holes in your walls. These people come in, sit down, row one, and order room service. The United States Constitution does not provide you the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's in the Independence, Declaration of Independence. That's not law. So you don't officially have a right to that under federal law. But Kentucky has a constitution also, just like all the other states do. But it just so happens that Kentucky's constitution is the most pro-people constitution ever written. that our people back in 1890 got so tired of being raped by the railroad companies that they wrote a constitution that protected the people and kept corporations from running roughshod over everybody. And even now, that's beginning to fracture as our legislature keeps selling out to the to the folks that I call the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, fascist, elite son of a bitches. So what's going to happen is that the very first section of Kentucky's Constitution ensures that its citizens constitutionally are endowed with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's the number one section in Kentucky Constitution, so I feel obliged to make it the number one basis of policy for my relationship of government to the people in the state of Kentucky. I'm going to get it off of their backs. I'm going to take it out of the bedrooms and the bloodstreams and the brains and the bladders and the billfolds and back pockets and the internet bulletin boards and put them back in the little box where they belong. I'm going to make government not a burden on the people. I think it's the role of government to uplift, enlighten, educate, and endow people with an appreciation of life, appreciation of the social compact, their civil duties, their civil responsibilities, and make sure that we address them as sovereign human beings, capable of making their own decisions. And we're going to get medical marijuana in the hands of every sick and dying person in the state of Kentucky. No permit needed. I'm going to take it out of the hands of the 10 and 13 and 14-year-olds who are doing it just for kicks. We're going to give them over to the old age homes, to all the old folks in the old age homes. Hey, increase the appetite, put a smile on their face, and think about the increased visitation by the young folks. Hey, let's go see Dad. Okay, folks, here we are standing on the corner of Manowar and Versailles Road. It's Keeneland time. A lot of traffic. I know it's going to be a large amount of traffic coming through this intersection. I've got a sign here that I'm holding up. You can fix a sign of your own. We'd like you to get a sign from us, but if we can't get you one, make your own sign. Make sure it says Gatewood, Governor, Independent. You stand on the corner, you get traffic coming one way. When the light changes, you turn around and you get traffic going the other way. And just get as many people as you can to see that image. Gatewood, Governor, Independent. Oh, I've been out on the corners like this for about 25 years. I ran for Commissioner of Agriculture in '83. I started doing it at that time. So it's been, 28 years. Step up this way a little bit, Jerry. Let's give you folks a little more.
So believe it and get ready to receive it. Now let's take back America. The war is over and we won it. Let's remember how we done it so we don't have to do it.
My name is Gatewood Galbraith and I'm an independent candidate for governor. We don't want a political party. My running mate now, hey, dear, if you're going to use your outside voice, go over and join the other children over on the playground. We're trying to get some serious conversation going on here, okay? So you go over with the other kids over there. You know, people say, Galbraith, you're a perennial candidate, and I said, well, Kentucky's got perennial problems. If the people had beaten me the first time and solved the problems, I wouldn't have had to run again. But they didn't, and they haven't, and they can't. Because neither party can produce a candidate that can disengage from the partisanship long enough to work with the other side to actually get the job done. The leadership of both parties have their horns locked up like two white-tailed buck fighting over territory while our business lays dead in the dust. And both of the parties are to blame for what we've got here. Neither party has presented any solutions to it. Dee and I are not asking you to vote against your party or vote for the other dreaded party. We're asking you to vote for an independent governor who does not care who gets credit for doing what's right for the people. If you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, if you've got a solution to Kentucky's problems, you can come to the governor's office where we stand, and we will do our best, and we will give you all the credit for it. If you come up with a good idea, Mr. Williams had a great idea the other day, and I complimented him on it. And I said, David, I said, when I'm governor and you're president of the Senate, we're going to put that idea through. But, you know, folks, I've got to tell you, Mr. Williams can't win this election. Mr. Williams cannot win this election. I'm sorry to say. I'm sorry to say.
Well, listen, if it wasn't for an extremely good mama and the threat of Eddyville maximum security prison, I'd gone wrong a really long time ago. So my mama probably kept me on the straight and narrow more than anybody else. But when as I got older, I became desperate for role models. And so I looked for the people who I thought stood for the right things. They're hard to find. So I decided, quite frankly, you want to know the truth? I decided that this society needs a new hero, and there's no reason in the world why I shouldn't be it.
Right.
Gatewood supported our initiative drive, did so very publicly. He'd be very happy to see the turn of events since then, but he was an amazing speaker and one of my mentors.
Tell your friends, of course, if you don't like it, just hush up about it, would you?
Thumbs down yet.
We watched him run 9 races in 29 years, and every time
This is the most efficient vote-getting process in the world.
it was classic Gatewood.
I do, dear. Good to see you.
He ran for Congress back-to-back in 2000.
Get a photographer, get a picture of that, would you?
In 2002, he said he was done after the 2002 election. But there he was the next year, running for Attorney General.
Literally, I was drafted into this race.
Gatewood was a soundbite machine.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Get your friends out there.
I'll never forget that early May Day I spent with him in 2007 while he was running in the Democratic primary for governor.
Thank you, dear. I love you all, too.
A street corner charmer
Kentucky's going to be a fun place to live when I'm governor.
who raised Kentucky's conscience.
You know, we cannot have that. That's the partisanship that's killing us.
Engaging and intelligent, but also
Right here in my hand.
just wacky enough to never be taken seriously by the mainstream. This was the time he was arrested during Lexington's 4th of July parade. Yes, he was an independent cuss, but Gatewood,
Let's just head down this way, folks.
Kentucky will miss you.
is Mr. Henry Ford in 1941 with Popular Mechanics magazine showing off his car made from hemp.
Come see what we can see. Come climb the mountain with me, and then we will all be free. Some men are born to lead, some men have destiny. Some men plant the seed, and some men set it free.
We had 92,000 cars a day, thousands of people parking behind the FBI building, and they arrested us and they said, you cannot do this. I said, well, I'm not going to pay you a fine and go on probation. So I did 15 days in prison rather than give them a $5 fine.
Wow, that's kind of like telling Jesus you can't practice on Sunday.
It was a fine line. So come climb the mountain with me. Come see what we can see. Come climb the mountain with me, and then we will all be free.
Jack here and Ed Adair.
Well, hi guys.
They must be on the hemp tour. Are you on the hemp tour?
One man said we must hear. One man's voice was clear. One man heard the call. His vision speaks for all.
The number one plant for paper, fiber, and fuel from the natural cycle had been outlawed. That somehow the synthetic cycle had won, when the number one thing in the natural cycle could outproduce it and completely clean up the atmosphere. So my partner, Captain Ed, who had become my partner in 1973 and doing the politics of this, said we have to teach everybody in the world. So we went around and told everybody. Yeah. But it was a slow process.
So come open your eyes with me and come see what you can see. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. Come open your eyes with me. It's time for you to see. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no clothes.
You got your PhD from the University of Oregon Medical School, which
Yes.
is now known as Oregon Health Sciences University.
That's right, yes.
And while you were there, I know you told me the story about finding huge gallon jars of cannabis in the cupboard.
Yes. When I started as a grad student at the medical school, Dr. David, the chairman of pharmacology, says, Levesque, I'd like you to go in and straighten out the stockroom, whatever, just straighten it out. And the first thing I found was a gallon jug of cannabis cough medicine. And at that time, it was illegal for cannabis of any sort to be anywhere. And this was 13 years after 1937 or so, something like that.
Yeah, about 1950.
And it was manufactured by Park Davis.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, well, if Park Davis paid me to go to medical school. So I just said, if Park Davis says this stuff is good for cough medicine, it must be good. So I poured myself a pint of it like this. And it's probably out in my barn someplace, and it's probably still good.
All right. All right. That's a great story. This is an Eli Lilly container. We're going to do our little show and tell here. Here are several cannabis-based products. This one is Sunny Hemp from Nature's Path. You can pick these up at most local grocery stores, not drugstores, but grocery stores. And so they're nifty little hemp bars. Next door, we have Emerald Empire Hemp Munch, toasted hemp seeds. Emerald, the hemp company of America, is based right here in wonderful Oregon, and it's a tasty snack. Right next door, we have a hemp tea product. I used to drink these in Switzerland back in the late 90s, and marijuana was actually legal in Switzerland from 1997 to 2002, when an initiative made the ballot in Switzerland. Switzerland invented the initiative process. It went into effect from 97, was voted down 52 to 48% in 2002. The United States DEA spent about $10 million to defeat it. That's in a country of 4 million Swiss voters. So our federal government went in there, the Drug Enforcement Administration spent $10 million to make sure the Swiss hemp bill lost, and it did.
I feel safer.
So, yeah. And so next door we have a embossed bottle of Dr. Craddock's Cannabis Indica. I don't know if you can see it on there. Well, you guys with the HD TV, you probably, oh yeah, there it is.
Nice,
Cannabis
nice.
Indica.
Nice.
From Dr. Craddock of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Right next door, we have a full bottle, speaking of cough syrup, of Linden's Cough Balsam. And it is, it's got about a dozen different languages on it. It's
mostly Polish.
Most Polish and Eastern European languages. Right next door, we have a, what is this? This is the glycerophosphates compound with lecithin, a reconstructive tonic and nerve food. And the number one ingredient is Cannabis Indica.
Nice, nice.
And then here we have two bottles. There's one still in the box that's unopened, and I'm not going to open that because it's a lot more valuable. And this one just has some residue inside. And this is the Lloyd Brothers Cannabis Extract. So that's another nifty thing that shows its medical utility. And last but not least, we have Eli Lilly's pint bottle, fluid extract number 96. They had about a dozen different cannabis compounds, including powdered hashish and fluid extracts and tinctures, and then they mixed it just like this other one, the glyphosate nervine. They mixed it with several other things, so it wasn't uncommon to find these nerve potions that included cannabis. And so there it is from Eli Lilly.
I want to tell y'all a little bit about a plant I know that can save the world. It grows lemons on and has flowers that can make your heart swirl. It's a funky plant with a pocket that is resistant to rain and mold. It's the strongest plant fiber known to man, the best rope you'll ever hold. With the pioneers coming up the weapon trains with a canvas made of hemp. Washington and Jefferson, they grew it on their farms and said to reap the most of it. The first stars and stripes were sold from him, the first Constitution too. Around the world for food, fiber, oil, medicine, and fuel. And if we bring the seeds, we won't have no need for any other oil. We can make paints and things, run our cars, put it back next season, then we'll mix the soil. The most nutritious seed we can put in our mouth, it'll make us 6 and 3. We can feed the world with the tree of life and live sustainably. But if we cut down all the trees, we won't have nowhere to breathe. We'll grow fields of hemp instead. Yeah, they got paper, build a house from it. Gotta spend for wild and free, living the way that we ought to be. So leaving our children a better world than my ancestors left me. Whoa, whoa. La 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 la. Whoa, whoa. All the studies have been done and all the doctors agree, but they can't out this fantasy because it's free. It grows from a seed and wild and free like we are. Being on the future is growing in our own backyards. But if we cut down all the trees, we won't have nowhere to breathe. We'll grow fields and have grow wild and free, living the way that we ought to be. Gonna leave my children a better world than my ancestors allowed me. Whoa, whoa. La 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 la. Whoa, whoa. Can bring us back 10,000 years in history. To the Shiva, piranhas, the Jesus, the Christ, to the Buddha, the pagans, the goddess, the light. To be with all the animals, be one with all the trees. Realize the goddess is inside me. Yes, the earth is the mother, the devil, triple on the earth. The earth is the mother that gives five births. And we can get all our relation with a single green plant. We can start right now. The earth is cut down all the trees. We won't have nowhere to breathe. We'll grow fields and help instead. We can make our bed, we'll build a house from here. Wild and free, living the way that we are. Be gonna leave my children a better world than my ancestors allowed me. Whoa. La 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 la. Whoa.
I'm watching the Super Bowl and I see that they're saying people like me are, in addition to like mowing the lawn and having some nachos, also murdered a family in Colombia. I take offense to that. Who else takes offense to that? I did not murder a family in Colombia, and it is the people that are propagating those ads that are responsible, and they're going to keep on. They're going to be. I can't even imagine how many families are going to die because of our drug war in Colombia.
War on drugs? Give me a break, man. Attention, drug war generals out there. We are fighting back, man. And unlike you drug war generals, we are non-violent. We are peaceful. You cannot and will not stop us because we are not criminals. We are Americans. We're going to make that mean something. And we're about to take our country back and put it in the hands of the people who founded this country. The hands of the people whose blood and sweat and tears and backs paved the way for us to be here today. The problem is that in our justice system, we've got too much emphasis on the system and not enough emphasis on the justice. And that ain't gonna make it, man. That's exactly why we're here today at Seattle Hemp Fest. That's why you came out, and we'll be vocal day after day after day, year after year after year until we've overcome and justice finally prevails.
All right. Pre-recorded shows on both the 15th and the 22nd, but we'll be back here the day after Thanksgiving on the 29th of, or the 15th, 22nd, then we're here live on the 29th of November and thereafter. So I want to thank you folks for watching. We're going to go out on a great tune by Mr. John Cornette, who wasn't feeling well enough to be here tonight, but we missed his music. So here's his song. Tune in for our recorded shows next week. And adios, amigos. I'm off to Mexico and Colombia. Help us restore hemp. Good night.
My medicine is cannabis. Woohoo! But I also call it Metaganja. Ganja. I like Metaganja. Ganja. I like to grow Metaganja. Stick it in the ground, water it down, Metaganja. Woohoo! Imagine that. Ganja. I want Metaganja. Ganja. I want to use Metaganja. For food and medicine, prohibition must end. Metaganja! Woohoo! Ganja. I like Metaganja. Ganja. I like to use Metaganja. Sometimes we get high. Yes, sometimes we do get high. Mariganja. Woo-hoo-hoo. There's nothing wrong with getting high, folks.